Advertisers want you, the consumer, to sit up and take notice of their products and their messaging. But how do you feel as a consumer when they just leave you out and don't see you? Or do you think adverts have become more inclusive? Let's get started. Good evening and welcome to the Democracy Gauge. I'm Bongani Bingwa. On the show today, we're going to focus on the advertising industry and whether or not it has acknowledged particularly the new emerging black middle class as an important target message. We've all heard, of course, the phrase, "You cannot be everything to everyone." So does the same apply to advertisements? If one group loves a campaign, does it mean that necessarily all the others love it too? How has the South African advertising industry evolved over the years? Has it become sensitive to minorities, to other cultures, genders, stereotypes? Or do you think that our ads have become simply too PC? Listen, advertising is still the go-to tool when it comes to introducing a new product or service, or when you want to alter attitudes of consumers, or perhaps even educate people on important national issues. So tonight, we're asking the question, are adverts inclusive? You can choose from our standard 3 colors. Green is yes, red is for no, and of course yellow is for maybe. So these are our colors. You can go to sabcnews.com/elections to vote. And of course, we extend the conversation to Facebook and Twitter. Remember there to use the hashtag SABCDG25 and hashtag SABC News. Right, we'll put together 2 different adverts for you closer to home at the SABC. One of our sister channels, SABC 1, produced the following, and then another ad was produced just about a month ago. The discussion about both ads will follow just quickly. Well, talk about shifting the needle. That certainly was a controversial one, right? That's our homegrown ad. Now take a look at this one by one of the leading beverages on the market.
My name is Bongani Oguhle Ogwamadlamani. No one really gets it. Bongani. Some just say Bongani H-E. Let me start from the top. Even spelling it is long. You want my pickup lines? I'd ask, what's your name? And she's like, Sheila. And I'm like, oh, my name is Bongani. But It's longer. We'll discuss that later. My name is Bongano Guhlo Kwamadlamane. Share Coke with me.
Well, I can assure you I'm simply Bongani, that's all there is to that. All right, we're joined now by an industry specialist, Suhana Gordon, who's the creative director at FCB Africa. Suhana, welcome to the Democracy Gauge.
Thank you.
Now, you obviously are passionate about advertising, and we've just seen two examples that show how advertisers can maybe get it right and perhaps at times push the needle.
Yes, the very first example, I think a lot of us remember that ad, and because of social media today, I see that ad surfacing again and again in WhatsApp chats, and people still throw back to it, and that's the power of that story. It has staying power. I think it was made in 2004 and is still relevant today. In fact, that message in that ad is so hard hitting. I wish there was more work like that out there.
Well, the SABC one is a lot more recent, but it was banned because people complained. But I think what's relevant for me for our discussion is the fact that actually an ad that's banned isn't necessarily a bad thing for the brand.
I think, the thing with ads that get banned, they obviously create some level of discomfort. And I think discomfort is good if you're trying to push the needle and if you're trying to bring up topics that have been swept under the rug. So that particular SABC ad, I think it was a great story because it allowed people to put themselves in the shoes of another. And that's the only way you can really get to understand your fellow man.
So what was the offense?
I think it was the timing. I don't know. I think I'm on the other side of the fence. I like the ad, so it's hard for me to say. But I think people were not ready for it. I think it was the hard-hitting truth that sits uncomfortably for those people who don't agree with the message.
A little too close to the bone. Coca-Cola, on the other hand, as we saw, has really encapsulated the idea of speaking to individuals, of letting the consumer see themselves reflected in the brand messaging.
Yes, and I think that's the key to inclusivity, is that if you see yourself in the media out there, if you feel recognized, then you feel represented. And for us, this Coca-Cola campaign was about inclusivity. We look at ourselves where we sit now. It's 25 years post-democracy, and we have 11 official languages, yet so many of us still can't even pronounce each other's names properly. So that ad you saw was just one in a series of a bunch of ads, just helping South Africans to get out of their comfort zones and to just try and say each other's names. So that was our story on inclusivity, and how do you get to connect with someone if you can't even just say their name?
So let me ask you this. Quite often ads can get it spectacularly wrong by playing to stereotypes, by playing to tropes. What are the do's and don'ts of navigating sensitive areas?
So I think it starts with the people responsible, the people in the creative room coming up with the ads. If I have to take it one step further, it starts with who is in that room. So ad agencies have a responsibility.
Because quite often you think, did you guys get any advice about
who
this
was
thing?
in that room?
Yeah.
It's the same question we asked when we saw the Pepsi ad about a year or two ago. So it starts with making sure that the people in the creative room are representative of the people out there that are viewing the ad. Diversity is absolutely important so you don't become tone deaf, so that you get the message right. Then the responsibility falls in the hands of the marketers, who have to make sure that they choose and buy the right work. And then when it comes to stereotypes, I think that that's what we tend to go to. And if we look back into towards the 80s and 90s advertising in South Africa, we played into those stereotypes heavily. And there's a danger in that stereotypes can not necessarily be untrue, but as Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie says, you must be careful of a single story.
They confirm one narrative about a people.
It's only one-sided.
Have we learned our lessons? Have we matured as an industry?
Not fast enough, not effectively enough. I'm part of the industry, and I'm increasingly frustrated.
What horrifies you?
That we're still not as transformed as we should be. So when I spoke about the diversity in the room, I don't think we're there yet. I think
so. You can make great ads that have the right messaging, but sometimes you're lucky because the people behind them they still look the same.
They still look the same, and even if I look at something as simple as language in this country still divides us. So we're not making enough work in the black languages that are spoken in the mainstream. So you still have work that's relegated related to the African language stations. So I think we're not transformed enough. We don't have enough black leaders at the helm of advertising, which means those people set the tone. So if I'm a young creative and I'm not seeing that ahead of me, it's very difficult.
Yeah. And sometimes what we do is we translate an English ad into the vernacular, thinking socially and tonally it will translate, and it doesn't always, does it? All right, so Hannah Gordon, thank you very much for joining us here on the Democracy Gauge. Now, as you know, every day we ask you a poll question. You can interact with our poll on sabcnews.com/elections, and of course on Facebook and Twitter, remembering to use the hashtag SABCDG25 and hashtag SABC News. Tonight we're asking, are adverts inclusive? You can choose from our three colors. Green is for yes, yellow maybe, and red for no. And we'll share some of your views after the break.
When thinking about the hassle of switching medical aid, Tuli has an epiphany. Bonita's let her apply online and a human phones her back. No long forms, no on-hold music. That's real medical aid. Exciting.
Welcome back. I keep saying this show is all about you. The Democracy Gauge puts you, the viewer, at the center of what we are telling. It is the South African story, and really what we've done is go around the country. This is our SABC News website, so it's sabcnews.com/elections. And you can see we've got our map here. A lot of the content is related to what we do on the Democracy Gauge. So all around the country there are markers, and these represent different people's stories. For example, if I click on Durban, there is a particular story that comes up. But also, as you continue scrolling up the website, there are the different videos. Some we have played, others are still coming. So you can get all of this rich content from across the country, ordinary South Africans expressing themselves about whether or not this democracy has delivered. Well, of course, then on that note, the People's View allows you to interact with us live on the show. And you can share your views candidly because, of course, we are independent and impartial. Today, we have Zwelakhe Chabangu, who is the founder of the Make Beautiful agency, who sent us this WhatsApp video.
You know, for an industry that says we want different people, you know, or we want diverse people and stuff like that, they fail dismally again at that, because my thing is also I have a problem with the word diversity or diversifying. Because it can mean very much of the same. If BMW makes a 3 Series and a 5 Series and a 7 Series, it's still a BMW. You know what I mean? So you've diversified, call it the mark or the make, but it's still the same thing. And they can diversify any way they can. That diversification never actually includes real power. So they'll put a black person in a leadership position, and that person will still have another person who's not, black to report to. And what that means, you see, that's where we end up with ads where black people are laughing and dancing all the time. It's because when you come up with an idea as a black creative or a strategist, you end up doing this thing called black-splaining. Now, what does it mean? It means you continue explaining your blackness. You know, no Tina Kasi sends so, no Tina, when we hang out, this is how we do it. Or when we're in the suburbs, this is how we, you know what I mean? And then they can't relate to that, because even after 25 years of democracy, they haven't taken the time to go into someone else's skin. And I'm saying that intentionally, let alone our shoes, you know. So those things start happening, and then someone may come up with a great idea, but whoever they're pitching it to may not have a context of that life.
So that's one perspective. Now, if you want to be part of the People's View in our next show, you can send us an email to dg25@sabc.co.za. Listen, we can talk to you via Messenger, we can talk to you via Skype, we'll phone you, and of course, feel free to send us a WhatsApp video like you've just seen. There's the number flashing on your screen, 081 732 8421. So that's the number on your screen. Now, after the break, we're going to travel north and meet 83-year-old Jameson Mashakele, who is one of the oldest residents at the Nkomo Sea village outside Giyani in Limpopo.
On Trends Travel, we bring you a full guide on all things lifestyle related. With so much to discover, we give you comprehensive reviews of places to visit, music, travel, and food. We also explore the arts, whether on or off stage. All this and more. Be sure to tune into Trends Travel Saturdays at 5:30 p.m.
As you would already know, through the Democracy Gauge, SABC News has been going around the country. We profile different South Africans every day. And as I said earlier, that content lives on our website, sabcnews.com/elections. And today we're going all the way to Limpopo. We are going to Giyani to try and find today's story, of course. And it's the story of Jameson Mashakele, who is one of the oldest people in that village, and Jamison's story is whether or not democracy has developed and delivered for him.
Ambana namuntlha imaviriviri yava wena ngamya mina ambana namuntlha mina na nsati wa mina ambana namuntlha
vito ra mina
mina na mana swihlangi
ra vuhlangi emebvenula ra xilungu me Jameson Mashakele hayi Mashakele. Loko ni ta la ni suka kaya aka ndhambi ka Dzumeri aka Gwela va lo ni qinela mina va ku loyi walowa loyi a ni famba kahle ku hlupheka ka koho a ku ni hluphangi ku fana na le Alexander. Peme ku lowa a ni swi tivi ku ri va vula swilo swa njhani. Lexi ni xi tivaka ku loko munhu a ni kwatela a ni ba ku lowa entswini a ni swi tivi. Ni vula kusukela na namuntlha na sweswi ku ta fikela sweswi a munhu loyi va ngo loyi noyi a ni n'wi tivi leswaku ri noyi hambi Xikwembu a ni swi tivi. Ma n'wi vona Nelson ku hlupheka ka yena a lwela hina hayi leyi taku sweswi ya kula ku dya mali ko va ndzhuti sweswi hi nga wisa hi nga tita i ta ya kwihi a pfunekangi nchumu ku va a yisa xikolo swoho hi swoho hikuva swikolo a sweswi se ku nghene na tibazi na mabazi a vo famba kahle vana va hina va ha cacacaciwi lomu tindleleni hi laha hi wu khensaku kona ku mfumo lowu hi nga na wona. Mara ka mfumo liyana layana ka luyana ku nghene un'wani lana ka mfumo lowu wa sweswi hi wowo lowu nga na n'wina. Hayi wa Jacobo ni Jacobo is nonsense i hluphe ngopfu. Norho wa kahle lowu a wu fanele wu ri wa kahle i wa ku hi kuma mali na hina va ngetelela mani futhi kwala ka mali lana hiko ku karata ngopfu nsati wa mina na sweswi wa tirha a nga holi mali ene ni twa ni kwata ngopfu lero a ni tivi ku mani loyi ni nga vulavulaka na yena
mina na nsati wa mina hambana namuntlha mina na mana swihlangi hambana namuntlha hi swivulavula swa vanhu.
Right, time now to go back in time, looking at this day in 1994 as we were building up to our first democratic elections. I mean, it was such a momentous time, and thanks to the SABC's archives, we were able to trace events to that very day 25 years ago. Now, the PAC's Clarence Makwetu, remember him? He addressed supporters at a graduation ceremony at what was then called the Vista University in Botshabelo.
We were allowed to read only 2 magazines, and these were Inkubela and Tselopi. The reasons are obvious. Well, because we had nothing else to do, we had to go through them with a fine comb. And in the process, we used to be very delighted to see 2 or 3 young women amongst a multitude of African graduates. But I'm almost certain that you will agree with me that that position has changed. I've been watching the proceedings since I came in here, and I can safely say that the situation is dominated by the members of the fair sex. I have no problem with this, more so that we are promoting and preaching a non-sexist South Africa. But my worry is that the scale is so tilted towards the other end that we might reach a stage where we will have to say we are no longer observing a non-sexist South Africa.
Boy, how things have changed. Well, thank you for taking the time to watch our show and to participate. On Wednesday, we're going to be talking about how apartheid South Africa stole the identity of thousands of people. Sarah Jane King was born in 1980 as a result of an interracial affair, which of course under apartheid was illegal. Remember the Immorality Act? Well, she wrote an autobiography in the hopes of documenting and sharing her story. What happened after the book was released will have you in tears. You don't want to miss this one. In that regard, we'll be asking, has apartheid's Immorality Act messed up our identity and sense of belonging? Our poll is now open. Choose from 3 colors. Green is yes, yellow is maybe, red is no. And of course, you can interact with our poll on sabcnews.com and answer our questions on Facebook and Twitter, remembering to use the hashtag SABCDG25 and hashtag SABC News. You can also view all the profiles featured on this show as well as on previous episodes. And of course, you can do that at sabcnews.com/elections. Remember, if you want to be part of the People's View in the next show, send us an email, dg25@sabc.co.za. From me, Bongani Bingwa, thank you for watching. Until tomorrow, ubusuku benzolo. Good night.